Teddy covers on this Wednesday. We break down World Series Game 2. We'll talk about the Heat. Now, we have not talked any NBA yet. We're saving it for Teddy here because it's a big slate. There are some teams that I want to talk about because there's some games that are interesting me tonight in the NBA. For a guy that's only an occasional NBA bettor. I've really lessened my volume in the regular season. You can only do so much. My focus this time of year, football, hockey, college basketball when it starts. So I only dabble in the NBA, but I still keep up with it, what goes on, and certainly some interesting teams and games to talk about. Let's bring him in. Teddy covers, as he is every morning here on Betting with the Bag. Teddy, how are you on a Wednesday morning?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Very good, very good. I'm rocking my Hamilton Tiger Cats hoodie. Very proud to do it because they are East Division champions in the CFL. They've had a great season. I'm a season ticket holder. Teddy will know the guy that saved our season. And it's funny, Teddy, the Hamilton Ticats, they've got a Philadelphia Eagles 2018 situation going on a bit here where, that season Carson Wentz gets hurt. Eagles fans saying, well, there's our season. It's done. Sure enough, Nick Foles takes over and they march all the way to a Super Bowl title. My Ticats, they see that Jeremiah Masoli, season-ending torn ACL injury in Week 3. Ticat fans around me, people I'm with at the game saying our season's over. We're not going to compete for a Grey Cup now. We were a good team coming into the season. Sure enough, saving our season is our backup quarterback, and you know him very well, Teddy, Dane Evans. Tulsa Golden Hurricane, and
Sure.
He has been nothing short of awesome for us, taking over the quarterback spot to go with a good defense that we have, good special teams. People thinking our season was over when Masoli got hurt, and I said to people, nobody in this city of Hamilton, I guarantee it, has seen Dane Evans play at college at Tulsa more than I have. I can guarantee that, and I'm telling you, this guy can play. Settle down, calm down. I still think this is a good football team and can be one. Sure enough, Dane Evans takes over. Next thing you know, here we are, 13-3, East Division champions, and still a great chance maybe to compete for and win a Grey Cup. So, Dane Evans, thank you for saving the Ticat season. I know Dane Evans holds a special place in your heart, Teddy, because I think you backed that guy a lot in his Tulsa days. Did you not?
I did. Dane Evans made me a fair bit of money, so I appreciate the fact that he's making you a whole bunch of money. And I hope that you were able to take advantage of the fact that the betting markets tend to crash on teams whose quarterbacks get hurt. I don't know. Look at, say, the New Orleans Saints, perhaps an example of a team where the market said, oh, Drew Brees is out. You're no good. And all the Saints have done since Drew Brees got hurt is win every game and cover every point spread. So I'm hoping you made a bunch of money with the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
And they've been an ATS machine. It's proven your point perfectly, and they've had a great ATS season, great straight-up season, everything. So it's been great to see. What's also kind of great to see, nice little segue here, is that we might have a World Series after all. The Washington Nationals, 5-4 winners in Game 1 last night against the Houston Astros. And now all of a sudden, here's Houston down 1-0 back at the Juice Box tonight. Minute Maid Park for Game 2, hosting the Nationals, Verlander against Strasburg. And all of a sudden, they lose this game. They're down 0-2 going back to D.C. for the next three games in this series. So all of a sudden, some concerns now for the Astros. This is suddenly a big game for them. They've got Verlander on the mound, laying $1.75, total of 7 in this game, Teddy. I said earlier in the show, and I know you've made this point many times, especially in the NBA playoffs, when a series begins with a particular team mispriced, sometimes they can be mispriced for that entire series, and you can ride them game in and game out with success. Are we at that point with Washington where maybe this series has just been a little bit mispriced based on plus 180 dog last night? They win Game 1, plus 160 underdog tonight, knowing that they won Game 1, knowing that Strasburg's been absolutely incredible for them. This lineup, I was so impressed they got to Garrett Cole, considering they had a week layoff. No layoff for that offense, that lineup. They were able to put up some runs, get some big at-bats last night. I was very impressed with that. Is this team just mispriced from day one, or do we need to pump the brakes and say, wait a minute, let's not go crazy that it's mispriced and Washington's just going to cash every single game in this series at these great prices? This is still the Houston Astros. They're still arguably the best team going all season. They've got a better game in them. They've got Verlander on the mound at home, a lineup that's more than capable. Can they bounce back? I'm not going to lay anything with Houston or take Houston at all to find that out. Not when I'm seeing Justin Verlander answer questions to the media earlier this week. They pressed him about his recent World Series track record, not postseason track record, World Series track record. He's 0-4 with a 5.67 ERA and 5 World Series starts. 2 seasons with Detroit in the World Series and 1 with Houston. 5.67 ERA for Verlander in those starts, which isn't great. And they're talking about, he's talking about how his nerves are a little higher, his body's not feeling normal. He doesn't have the same amount of quality sleep at night when he's pitching in the World Series. And you're asking me to lay minus 175 with that guy? I'm not doing that tonight. I'm not doing that. Teddy, where do you stand here with Game 2 World Series tonight?
I'm not doing it either, Ian. And it's funny because yesterday's game, in a sense, really played out like I thought it was going to. I'm like starting pitch, and not that neither starting pitcher was in dominant form in yesterday's ball game. But what did we talk about? We're like, if you're gonna handicap the World Series, you want to talk about the lineups and the bullpens every bit as much as the starting pitching matchup. And what happened? Washington's lineup was good. Washington's bullpen made every Nationals better sweat throughout the latter stage of that ball game. It doesn't merit a $2 price tag. It doesn't merit a $1.80 price tag. The series price is pick 'em right now. And that's an appropriate price for this series right now. With Cole, with Verlander, you're talking about a couple of hurlers who are going to attract a lot of betting attention. I'm not worried about starting pitching in the postseason. I'm particularly not worried about it in the World Series. All right. Strasburg is every bit as good as Verlander. Okay. So if you're laying this price with the Astros, you're saying, well, the lineup and the bullpen are that much better. The bullpen, maybe. The lineup, no. I could only take Washington. I mean, and you talked about it right from the get-go. Series is mispriced from the start. It's not likely to get priced properly after an upset win in Game 1. Nats are capable. Strasburg's capable. Clearly, the lineup is capable. I would only look at Washington tonight. That's the only way I could look. And when it comes to laying a price with Verlander and the Astros this evening, I'm just not. Remember, who's all the pressure on tonight? Not the road team that's up 1-0. The home team, they're the guys that are sweating this one. Yeah, Washington at the plus price is the only way I could look for Game 2, much like Game 1.
And again, Strasburg, 4 runs allowed in 22 innings in the postseason. Pretty damn good track record. All right, we're getting to the NBA. We have not gotten to the NBA card yet. I wanted to save it for Teddy because he's fully entrenched in the NBA all season long. So let's go. Let's start with Detroit and Indiana. I want to talk about this game because Indiana's taken money. They opened 5-point home favorites up to 7.5, and you can understand why. There's a lot of people high on this team as an undervalued team, an under-the-radar team in the Eastern Conference. The Victor Oladipo injury last year completely changed the trajectory of the Pacers season from that point on. Now you're going to get him back. You got a team that's made some decent little improvements in the offseason in terms of acquisitions, and there's a lot of people. There's a little bit of a bandwagon forming on this Indiana team, particularly in this game, so they've already gone up to 7.5-point favorites over the Detroit Pistons. Overall thoughts on Indiana, Teddy? Is it warranted, the love this team's getting right now?
Oh, the love is all about Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin's not going to play tonight for Detroit. So the line moved 5 to 7.5. Frankly, I don't know if that's enough. Although for Game 1, that probably is enough. If we're talking somewhere later in the season where the Pistons are just going to lay down, it's a little different for Game 1, where we expect every team to show. The 2.5-point move, I think, is warranted. I'm very bullish on the Indiana Pacers. I love just about everything they did in the offseason. I think this team's going to make some noise. And particularly before Oladipo comes back. Everyone's like, oh, they'll be good in the second half when Oladipo comes back. I think they might be pretty good from the get-go. Now, it is a team with a lot of offseason changes. And when it comes to the very first week of the NBA season, I'm high on Indiana. I'm not convinced they're going to be the team I think they're going to be from day one. So I'm not going to lay here with the Pacers, but the Pacers don't like a look. I think Detroit, this is a mediocre team playing without their best player. I'm not excited about the Pistons opening to the season.
All right, we got Cleveland and Orlando, and there's another team that's taking money. Orlando 7.5 up to 9.5, total 212.5 in this game. Do you believe in magic? I do. I did believe in the Magic yesterday or last season. I thought they had a very good season. the Orlando Magic. You saw them play some serious defense in the second half of the season. I was impressed with what I saw from this Magic group. Of course, they gave the Raptors a little bit of a sweat, at least in the first round at times, but still overall very good season. They've got guys that can absolutely shoot the ball. Evan Fournier is a marksman from deep. Aaron Gordon, I thought, had a nice season for them last year. There's a lot to like here with this. With this Orlando team. Of course, Nikola Vucevic, definitely a guy, was an all-star last year for this Orlando team as well. So I like this team quite a bit. I think they're really obviously looking to take another step this year. And Cleveland, a whole bunch of question marks here. One of the most stunning things that I saw in the offseason was, of all people, John Beilein, who has been in Michigan forever and done an amazing job with Michigan in college basketball. Teddy and I know that more than anybody. We've backed Michigan a lot in college basketball over the years with John Beilein coaching them. And now all of a sudden he decides, well, I'm going to take the money, go to the NBA, coach the Cleveland Cavaliers, but he's got a hell of a job ahead of him. 19 wins for the Cavaliers last year. That's it. You look at the lineup, it's patchwork. I know the veteran Kevin Love's still there, but you got, Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, you got the rookie Darius Garland. This is a big project that's ahead for John Beilein. We'll see if he can handle it. He's a great coach, great X's and O's. Can he do it at the pro level like he did it at the college level? Teddy, what's your thoughts here with the Cavs and the Magic?
So Orlando is the type of team that I like to bet on coming out of the gate because they returned just about every key piece from the team last year. A lot of squads, the majority of squads, have had major upheaval in one way or another. Orlando is not one of those teams. So when you're talking about adjusting power ratings from the end of last season to the start of this season, the Magic should be power rated basically in the exact same place because they're basically the exact same team. So there's no downgrade off of roster movement for Orlando. And you talked about the fact that, they did what it took. Remember, that was a team that was in a long playoff drought. Last year they got there. Now the goals are a little bit higher and the markets aren't quite there. With Orlando, although we have seen a fair bit of money today. My point spread was 8 for this game. I'm not high on Cleveland, but so my initial gut was lay it with Orlando. This is a team we want the first week of the season. All right, especially against a bottom feeder like Cleveland, and Cleveland's going to be a bottom feeder. Beilein's best situation is Cleveland's a bottom feeder this year. I mean, this is not a squad that's going to find a way to win 40 games and compete for the 8th spot in the East. They're bad, and they know they're bad. But we're talking about when it comes to coaching a defense, I don't know there's many better coaches out there, and I'm like, do I really want to lay with a team that's getting steamed up, a team that's not a great home favorite, in a spot where I know the underdog is going to be better defensively than they're giving credit for in the marketplace? And the answer to that was no. So I didn't lay with Orlando. Slight lean towards the under here, but again, when it comes to the first big day of the NBA card, I'm not looking for reasons to get involved. I'm looking for reasons to not get involved. There's only one game that I got involved with tonight with actual bets, but it's a fun one. I bet side and total. We'll talk about it when we get there. I'm assuming are we going to go through all the games, Ian? So should I kind of be shorter or should I expound?
No, you know what?
I'm only going to go through some of them.
Because I'm not. I'll be damned if I'm talking about Chicago and Charlotte. Like that doesn't interest me. Chicago was terrible last year. Charlotte's been totally picked apart. Kemba Walker gone. That team rebuilding quite a bit. So I've got no interest in that. We do have to talk about this game. This may not be the one you're involved in, but it's the TV game. One of the TV games on ESPN tonight. Eastern Conference Showdown. Boston, Philly. Philly 5.5, 214 in this game. Obviously, the Celtics hoping that there's better, cohesion, locker room chemistry this year now with Kyrie Irving gone. You put that whole mess aside. He sort of torpedoed that team, in my opinion, last year. You hope that the changes you've made have made you better. The Sixers, I'm telling you what, they're going to be a scary team. Should be a year better, a year more experienced with all of their core players, including Embiid and Simmons. Can Simmons be a more consistent jump shooter? I like his defense. I like his rebounding. I like how he drives to the paint and can lay it up, but can he shoot? And can he improve a jump shot? That's going to be the thing to watch. They should be a very good defensive team this year, the Sixers, with all the shot blockers and rim protectors they have. No question about that. Very intriguing matchup, just like Lakers-Clippers was last night. It's not going to define the season if you win or lose this game, but it's fun to see these big-time teams play each other first game of the season. You got anything, Teddy, with Celtics and Sixers?
I could only take the points in that game. And I can't believe you wouldn't let me talk about Charlotte, Chicago. Bulls got no business laying points in the road. Charlotte, my power rated is the dead last in the NBA coming into the season, so we can understand why the Bulls are laying points on the road. Boston, Philly, my number came shorter. My number came 4 for this game. I'm leaning Boston, and if I see a 6, I'll get there with the Celtics for tonight. I have not seen a 6 yet. I haven't come. There's a couple of 5.5 starting to pop up in that game, and that's based. There were some questions about Simmons, whether he was going to be good to go. He's good to go. Celtics played the Sixers opening day last year. They throttled that team. They beat it by 20. I wouldn't be shocked if they win this game straight up as well. You ask me, I think Boston in general is something of an undervalued commodity. I think they're elite, and they're not necessarily being priced as elite coming out of the gate. I trust Brad Stevens to have his team ready day one. And this is not a series in which I'm looking to lay points. Celtics is road dogs. That's been their role. Boston or pass. I'm not laying this price with Philly. It's a little bit too high.
And there's worse things you can do than take Brad Stevens as an underdog catching points.
Correct.
We figured that out over recent years, especially on the road. I think the road dog role, if I'm not mistaken, has been pretty good for Brad Stevens in his tenure with the Boston Celtics.
Sorry, I said really it's been real good. Brad, that's been Brad Stevens' best role, is catching points on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Memphis, Miami. I'm a little bit surprised Miami's laying 8 here, 214. I know Memphis is, in transition, rebuilding, of course, with all the, they got rid of Gasol last year, Conley gone. I get that, all that. But Miami's got some issues, too, coming into this season. I mean, I know they get Jimmy Butler. They're all excited about that. And we know Eric Spoelstra is the kind of coach you trust to get the most out of any sort of patchwork roster he has. He's capable of doing that, getting the most out of a basketball team, regardless of what he's got to work with. But I don't know. I don't want to lay 8 with Miami here. You've got a little bit of issues off the court. I think there's what's the situation I'm reading about with Dion Waiters here? He's basically screaming and yelling at Spoelstra here prior to the season. So that's a little bit of something that's a concern for me, a negative for Miami. So when I look at it, Memphis, John Morant, they're going to try to build around him. Now going to become one of the big time components of this team. Grayson Allen, Dylan Brooks, Jaren Jackson Jr., a young group. Brandon Clark. I think Brandon Clark was a nice draft pick out of Gonzaga for this Memphis Grizzlies team. They got the big center, former Raptor, JV, Jonas Valanciunas as well. I don't think Memphis is without talent. I just think I'm kind of leaning Grizz here, +8. What do you think about this one, Teddy?
Yeah, I wasn't close to getting involved here. I think I'm a little bit higher on the Miami Heat than you are. That team needed a superstar, and they got one in Jimmy Butler. There's a lot of good role players on that team. There really is. And one of the problems I thought Miami had, as silly as it sounds, they had too much depth. They had too many guys that needed minutes last year, and I thought it hurt them. It helped them when they got banged up, but it hurt them overall. It hurt the team chemistry fairly significantly because they couldn't give guys like Dion Waiters minutes, which is still a problem, clearly, being that he's suspended for tonight. But you talked about Memphis's potential. I don't disagree that the Grizzlies have some talent on that team. But coming into the season with a rookie point guard, extraordinary youth everywhere on that squad, a head coach in his first gig, Memphis is not a bet-on team out of the gate, in my opinion. And as a road dog, I worry about this team losing contact. Conley matters. As a locker room leader, as a floor leader, they'll miss him in a lot of different ways. But their detriment is Utah's gain. The Jazz look pretty darn good on paper. But if I had to play the game, it would probably be Memphis plus. But this isn't one that I'm close to. It really isn't. Miami's not a good home favorite. You talk about Spoelstra's role. You don't want to lay points with Spoelstra at home. You want to take, he's like Stevens. You want to take points with Miami's been a great road dog over the years. But he's not one of the stronger home courts in the NBA. I won't lay with them here.
Brooklyn Nets hosting Minnesota Timberwolves. Brooklyn, all the big splashy offseason signings, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant. Of course, Kevin Durant's out for indefinitely. He ain't coming back anytime soon. But nevertheless, all the acquisitions and changes, a Brooklyn team that was a very good team last year as it was before all these changes. And yet here's the money coming in on Minnesota. They were 5-point underdogs, down to 3.5 now everywhere. Total 228, 228.5 in this game. I'm a Kenny Atkinson fan. I think he's a good coach. I don't know what to expect from this team. A lot of changes. They still have obviously Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Jared Allen. Holdovers from last year's pretty solid Brooklyn team. They bring in Kyrie Irving. I don't necessarily like that move. We saw it was a problem on the court, off the court with him with the Boston Celtics last year. Can he integrate himself? I kind of understand why there's some trepidation to lay points with Brooklyn here early in the season against Minnesota, who, coached by the son of the late Flip Saunders. Right now, a team that's certainly got their share of talent on this roster. Can they finally put it together and be an improved squad? Money for Minnesota. Do you agree with it, Teddy?
Some of that money was mine. Some of that over money was mine as well. I bet them separately.
There we go. There's the
I'm
magic
not convinced
Teddy
that side
game.
and total are related to this ball game. I'm sorry?
There's the Teddy game. We've come across it. There's the game you were talking about.
We found. Ding, 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 ding. If you go through, you'll find it. I played over and I played the T-Wolves. Minnesota was the fastest pace in the NBA in the preseason. All they've talked about is running and pushing and running and pushing, and T getting into shape and saying he wants to play shorter stints so we can push the pace at every opportunity and possessions per game. That's all Minnesota wants to do is run, jack up threes, run. They're an over team because from a defensive standpoint, they have some issues. Look at that net starting lineup. All right. It's not anything that you're going to go, wow, this is a playoff team. Wow, let's lay points with this team. Yeah, they're fairly deep. Their bench is pretty good. But they're not, and they weren't a going home favorite last year. I'm an Atkinson fan too. He's another road dog coach that I like. I don't like laying points with the Nets at the Barclays Center. It hasn't been a profitable venue. Every quote out of Minnesota is, we're coming to play. This is our season. I mean, there was a bunch of, this team's ready for game one. And again, the fastest pace of any team in the league in the preseason. I wouldn't be surprised if they run the Nets out of the gym tonight. I like Minnesota plus, and I like the over in that one. And both of them are actual wagers, not leans or opinions. That's money out of my pocket.
All right, that's T-Wolves, which is now plus 3.5, and the over. There's still 228s out there. Bookmaker / Chris, 5 dimes, 228. That opened 225.5, but still some value on it right now, over 228. I'm going to group these next.
Let me jump in real quick, Ian, because again, I bet better numbers than are currently available on both. I bet the over 225.5, and I bet I got a 4 with Minnesota. The 5s were gone in an instant. I got a 4 before it moved to 3.5. If you want to tail my plays, I have no issue. I have no problem with that at all. But if you're not getting the best of the number, your unit size got to be smaller. Period.
There you go. Exactly. Lower the amount if you're going to get in on it now, either Minnesota or the over in that game. Advice from Teddy there. I'm going to group the next 4 games together, and then we'll do standalone the Denver-Portland game because that's a great late-night matchup. I think those are two flying under the radar teams in the West that might be ATS moneymakers because everybody's going to focus on Lakers, Clippers, Rockets, Warriors, all of those teams, and Denver, Portland could slide in there, be nice little money makers this year. But first, New York, San Antonio, Washington, Dallas, Oklahoma City, Utah, Sacramento, Phoenix. Rapid fire opinions on those. Obviously, Utah should be really good. Oklahoma City completely starting from scratch. I could only lay the 9 with Utah personally. Sacramento, I think, is going to be a surprise this year. I'm kind of interested in the Kings. In a price range where a win should equal a point spread cover in that game. Those are the only 2 that stand out to me. But of those 4 games, Teddy, what do you see?
I had no interest in Knicks Spurs. I had no interest in Wizards Mavericks whatsoever. Washington's an interesting team because they might be really bad and they might be only kind of bad. And I'm not sure which one it's going to be. That's a game I will absolutely pay attention to tonight. Dallas getting a lot of respect in the markets, no question. My number on OKC Utah is 10.5. I could only play the Jazz in that game. I think Utah is going to be, you talked about some of the under the radar teams in the West. Utah might be at the top of that list. That team is really good, and I'm not convinced. That Conley pickup. I can't think of there are lots of other pickups that got bigger pub in the offseason. I don't know. There's a pickup that made a team better than what Utah did. Finding help for Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. I like the Jazz a lot. I think they're going to make us some money. Of the 4, the closest one I came to betting, and I didn't bet it, was on the other side of you. I thought about taking with Phoenix tonight, and I didn't pull the trigger. The early money did come for the Suns. I think from a point spread perspective, I think there is a legitimate potential for buy sign in Phoenix. This team has been bottom feeder. I mean, for a long time, and coaching change after coaching change, and GM change after GM change, and the roster's going this way and the roster's going that way. And this is the first year in about, I don't know, 5 years where, okay, this is our roster and this is our coach. And there's some talent there for Phoenix. I didn't end up pulling the trigger on the Suns because I'm like, and they, boy, game one, each of the last 2 years, they got blown out. And I'm like, this team's got to come the opening night. But then it's like, yeah, are they really going to win the game? Do we trust Phoenix to win games yet? I want to catch the Suns plus 10.5 on the road against somebody. I don't know if I want to ask them to win. So I did not pull the trigger on that one, though my lean was towards Phoenix. I'm not quite as high on Sacramento as you are.
All right, no problem with that. We've got Denver and Portland. Late ESPN doubleheader game tonight. We've got, let me see, where did it go? Here we go. Portland, pick 'em -1 home favorites, total 217. I like both of these squads. I like both of the coaches, although I like Mike Malone a little bit more. I think he's done a great job with Denver, had a great season last year. And I got a small lean to Denver here. I really like the Denver team. And it's not because they have a Canadian on the team and Jamal Murray. But I think that's a very good basketball team. You see it. I mean, you saw what they did last year. Murray, Jokic. That's a really, really good basketball team. I think they're going to have a good season. I think Denver, and I agree with you about Utah, Teddy. They're going to be an ATS moneymaker. I think Denver could be too, and even Portland if things go well. These are these teams you want to look at. Utah, Denver, Portland. They're not going to get the pub. The other teams in the West will, with the big-time superstars and the big splashy moves. But this is a great game to wrap up the night. What do you like here? Nuggets, Blazers.
So I would have played the Nuggets, but I missed a number, and I'm not going to chase a bad number on opening night. Plus 2.5 was a good bet. I would think for Denver. That number didn't last very long. There was only one of them out there, and it was boom, gone, and then down to 2, and then down to 1.5, and then down to 1. And it's like, all right, the market see it. The Nuggets are like Orlando in the sense that every key piece is back for that team. All right. So where you power rated Denver at the end of the regular season last year is where you should be power rating Denver at the start of this season or higher, because now they have an extra year of continuity. The coach is the same. The system's the same. The players are the same. Denver is the continuity there is real. And in the regular, I remember they got not bounced out of the playoffs. They were a little young for the postseason. This is a dynamite regular season team. Unfortunately, the markets aren't sleeping on Denver. And for Portland, you still have those. I still have those same questions about the Blazers front court that I've had for the last 3 or 4 years, where they've made some moves. They tried to fix their bench. Portland might be better than they were. And when you talk about a killer in late game situations, you say, what point guard do you want in a tie game with 2 minutes left? I'll make a case for Damian Lillard. He's as good as anyone down the stretch of tight games. So that does worry me here on the Nuggets side. But I think the Nuggets are the better of these two teams. And if I had to play tonight, it would only be Denver plus. But I missed the number, and I worry about betting against Portland in this particular point spread range where they've been pretty good. So I'll leave this one alone. Lean Nuggets, not betting it.
And that's what I like from Teddy. He gave you multiple reasons, factual reasons why he would lean Denver. He didn't bet it because he missed the number, but why he leaned Denver. I don't want to hear the focal point of the bet for Denver tonight being playoff revenge. I don't want to hear that. I think that's one of the most overrated things going in all sports. Revenge, revenge, revenge. Okay, big deal. This is just about, which team do you think's getting a good number? Which team do you think you got a little higher opinion on? That's what it should be about. The matchup shouldn't be about, playoff revenge. We got to bet this team. No, if that's the only reason you're betting a team, you got to find other factors, in my opinion. But moving on, Teddy, great job breaking down the NBA card. We got about 10 minutes left in the show, so we'll turn our attention to football, NFL and college football this weekend. I know Jimmy and the people in the chat, thank you for letting me know this, because I don't always watch or tune in to every Jimmy show. I'm busy as hell doing all kinds of things throughout the week, so I don't get to watch or be in the chat all the time. But what they tell me is that Jimmy sometimes through the week, he asks for what you bet the last 24 hours or 48 hours last time we talked to you here on the show in NFL and college football. So I'll pose it to you, Teddy. The last 24 hours or so, well, since yesterday, since we talked, have you made any additional bets for the NFL or college football slate this upcoming weekend?
So I have not, because I was working NBA all day yesterday. Normally on Tuesdays, I'll end up doing a bunch of college football work. That wasn't the case yesterday. I'm a little bit, and this time of year where you have multiple sports all going at the same time, sometimes you just got to do whatever it is that you can do in terms of getting stuff accomplished. So, I mean, for college football this week, it's the bets that I gave you on Monday are still the only bets that I made. I bet SMU minus 13.5. I bet Iowa State minus 8.5. I bet Texas +1. I bet Virginia -3. I bet Arizona State -2.5. Those are all good numbers, and none of those numbers are still available. And I haven't made a bet since. So I feel bad that I'm giving you, stuff that isn't currently available. The Texas +1 still out there. That was bouncing around all day yesterday. They're laying one now. That's not there.
SMU
I'm still
went
waiting
back
on
to
Central
13
Michigan.
and a half.
Betting 129.
SMU
I
went
know
back
I'm going
I
to
was
bet
just gonna
Central.
say,
I was hoping for a 3. It's still sitting at 2.5. It's been sitting at 2.5 all week. Oh, look, Circa's got a 3. And CG's got a 3. There's a couple of 3s in Vegas. I will make that bet when I get off the show. I was waiting for that 3. I thought we'd find it. I will have Central Michigan number 129 on my card. But that's all I bet so far is the 5 games that I talked about. And I will have the 6th in my pocket. And hopefully I'll have more for you tomorrow in college football. But I don't have more for you today. I'm happy to answer any questions in college football that come in from the chat, or if you want to run some plays by me, and I'm happy to do that. But in terms of my wagers, those are the only 5 bets that I've made so far, and I will make a 6th, like I said, as soon as we get off the show. God forbid somebody takes those out while we're talking.
So we added Central Michigan. So there we go. There's the new addition. Central Michigan +3 against Buffalo. I have no argument with that. Central Michigan's on a roll right now. Dormady at quarterback has come back and looked good. The defense has been solid enough. And do we trust Buffalo as a favorite? A Buffalo team that, okay, they still living a little bit off that. Do you think their power rating's been affected by that outlier win against Temple? Because I remember they had that just huge win against Temple, and it seems like it's bumped up Buffalo a little bit in terms of the power rating. But is it just a case of you think Central Michigan's flat out better than Buffalo? Because I kind of think that's the case as well.
I'm confident that Central Michigan is better than Buffalo. Central Michigan has been an every week. I had 2 every week teams. We talked about it, I think, 3 weeks ago. It was Iowa State and Central Michigan. Since I said that, they're both 3-0 ATS, and I'm going to ride them both till they die, and I might ride them after they die. But Central Michigan, again, if you find a Sun Belt team, a Conference USA team, Sun Belt team, guess what? Lafayette, a Conference USA, we got Western Kentucky. You find the team that plays defense in the lesser conference, that's an every week team. Central Michigan plays defense. There aren't many MAC teams that play defense. We have a team that's capable, that has a defensive line. They can blow up the line of scrimmage. They're in the backfield. I first saw it in the game at Miami, and then I saw it again the next week in the game at Western Michigan. I'm like, this is an every week team right now. The markets are not seeing Central Michigan, the strength of the Central Michigan defense, the strength of that defensive line. Statistically, it didn't show. And then they were -2 in turnovers. They got stopped inside the 10-yard line, I think 4 different times against Western. They got gashed early, and they fought back and covered that game for me. And I'm like, this is beautiful. They didn't even play good. They shouldn't have covered this game, and they did. And I was able to cash a ticket with it. But those back-to-back weeks from Central, when I'm watching them both times, I'm like, this team's real. This defense is real. And you find a defense in a lesser conference, and you ride that. You just play them. That's your bet on team in that conference. Central's got it, in my opinion. And you asked about Buffalo, the Temple win. Yeah, the Temple win affected their power rating. So did that first half of Penn. Remember, Buffalo went to Penn State. And at halftime, they had the lead in the yardage edge against the Nittany Lions. And it fell apart in the second half, but I know, at least in casual conversations around town, that kind of tipped people off on Buffalo. And they're saying, oh, well, this team might be a little better than we think they are. And then the win over Temple kind of confirmed that. So in my mind, Buffalo has been power rated a notch too high ever since that.
All right, couple questions. There we go. That's great. Thank you. In the chat, a couple questions about some games. One in the NFL from Guitar Rat 18. Can you ask Teddy his power rating for Miami Pittsburgh in NFL, which is the Monday nighter? Pittsburgh currently laying 14.5 in that game, total 43. Oh, that's a pick your poison game for me. Dolphins Steelers, Teddy, what you got?
So my powering number was was short, but I didn't adjust for Rudolph. And that's why. And my number only came 12.5. With Rudolph, it would be 14.5, which is pretty close to where the markets are right now. And in fact, the adjustment for Rudolph might even be higher than that. But 2 points appear, 2 points is appropriate adjustment. 14.5 is the appropriate. It was my powering number. Am I likely to play the game? No. I don't know what to do. Miami's been competitive the last 2 weeks. Legitimately competitive on both. The defense has played with a reasonable amount of passion. The offense has shown signs of Fitzmagic. There are things to like about Miami, and this is a team, again, you get the national TV opportunity. You don't want to get embarrassed, I would think. That being said, the Steelers could run this team out of the gym. Pittsburgh's got a defense. I know Buffalo had a defense last week for Miami, but Pittsburgh's got a defense, and they're off a bye. And, the Bills last week were like, laying 17? No chance. We can't lay. We don't know how to lay 17. Pittsburgh, to say know how to, I think the Steelers are more capable of putting together a 60-minute game of execution against Miami. And I also worry that Miami, pardon my expression, but they shot their load against the Bills. I mean, the energy and passion was there against a divisional opponent. If things go south on Monday night, it could get ugly. I don't want the Dolphins. I doubt I play the game.
All right, we go down to our last couple. The guy that asked me about Miami-Pittsburgh, he was actually talking about the college game, not the NFL game. So that's bad. That's my bad. So we'll get your take on the other Miami-Pittsburgh. Miami Hurricanes, Pitt Panthers, Pitt -6, and also someone in the chat asking Western Kentucky getting 5.5 at Marshall. Western Kentucky, Marshall, Miami, Pitt, college football. Teddy, go for it.
Western Kentucky are passing that game. Again, that's the defense in the conference. All they've done is cover point spreads. Hilltoppers are pass in general moving forward. I think they're every bit as good as Marshall, perhaps. We'll find out on Saturday. But that's the only way I would look in that one. Miami Pitt. See, you said Pittsburgh. That's where you messed me up. We also said NFL. But Miami Pitt. So I have Miami on the short list. This is their bounce back spot. This is the spot they're supposed to play. Pitt's not a team I'm comfortable laying with. Miami throttled them last year. They have the athleticism edge. And the team off the embarrassing loss, we're seeing it all over college football. Team off the embarrassing loss is showing up the next week. Lean Miami, haven't pulled the trigger. They are on my short list.
To the TNF, there we go. I unmute myself. Thursday night football, Washington, Minnesota. I want no part of this game. I can't back Washington. Mike Zimmer, non-divisional home team. I don't know what the record is off the top of my head, but it's incredible. ATS, non-divisional home favorite or something like that. Zimmer, he's been awesome. I don't trust Washington to do anything. The primetime unders in the NFL are 18-4 this season. 18-4. Thursday night football, Sunday night football, Monday night football. It doesn't matter. These games are staying under the total. I guess I could see Minnesota covering and staying under still, because I think a 28-3 or 28-6 or 31-6 score is definitely in the cards in this Thursday night NFL game. What do you think, Redskins, Vikings?
The Vikings can name the score here. I mean, why the bottom feeder teams in the NFL are not teams I want to put my money on, because you know what you're going to get. All right. And Peterson's hurt, Peterson's fumbling. And since Callahan took over, Peterson's their only offense. Adrian Peterson left. Adrian Peterson had season highs in carries and rushing yards each of the last 2 weeks. And now we don't know if he's going to play, and he's banged up, and he's, again, fumbles each of the last 2 weeks as well. I don't want Washington. So it's a Minnesota or pass from the get-go. And the Vikings, again, we saw them light up a divisional opponent last week. Now they're on a short week against a non-divisional foe, and I know Zimmer's been really good in this role. He hasn't been laying 16 points in this role. Easy pass for me. There's no way I play this one.
All right, very good. And one last question, and then we'll wrap it up. Someone asking about Nevada, Wyoming. Nevada +14 at Wyoming. Christopher, I believe, Comatini in the chat is asking about that game. I'll tell you what, Teddy always talks about the short list. Well, Ian's short list has Nevada on it. I don't know if I'll pull the trigger because, it was kind of ugly offensively against that Utah State team last week, but I still think Malik Henry long-term better for this offense. I'm leaning Nevada. I haven't bet it yet. Do you have any strong opinion, Teddy? Nevada, Wyoming.
Here's a short list for you. Oh, can you see? There you go.
Not so
And
short
on my
list.
short list includes betting number 144 of the Wyoming Cowboys, minus 14. When a team quits once, you say, all right, maybe it was a bad game. When a team shows quit twice, you don't want that team as an underdog. When a team shows quit 3 times, you don't want that team as an underdog. All right, Nevada's quit in 3 games this year. Every time they're getting beat, they're done. Wyoming's not an easy team to lay points with. They're not, this is not a dynamic offense going to march the ball up and down the field. But the Wolfpack have shown legitimate quit on 3 separate occasions, and it's still the middle of October. That is not a team I want as a road dog against an opponent that's going to shut that offense down, Wyoming or pass for me. The only question, I'm worried about laying points with Wyoming because Wyoming can't score. But I do not trust Nevada to show up this week at all.
That's a good point. I mean, Wyoming, can they score enough offensively, do enough to put points on the board to cover a number like that? But when a team like Nevada, and they have indeed showed repeated signs of quit, that's definitely a little bit of a concern. No question. All right, that's going to wrap up things up. We're out of time. Thanks to everyone for your questions in the chat. Teddy, it's been great these 3 days. This is my last time this week hosting the morning show. Jimmy is back in the host's chair tomorrow morning, although I'll be on with him as a guest right before you tomorrow morning in my usual Thursday morning guest spot. So I'm looking forward to that and talking to Jimmy again. Teddy, thanks again. Where can we find you on Twitter?
Well, Ian, I really enjoyed getting to hang out with you the last couple of days. And it's funny. I see you, I see Donnie, I see all these guys that I know, and I never get to talk to you because you're on right before me. But it's been a pleasure the last couple of days, absolutely. I look forward. The next time Jimmy's out of town or sick, we'll do it again. And follow me on Twitter at Teddy_covers. The low baggers give me a lot of love. I really appreciate it, guys. Enjoy the games tonight. Good luck. And I'll be back again tomorrow with Jimmy.